On a mission given to me by Woody Shaw, Sunship, Dizzy, and John Kahn, dedicated to pursuing a piece of our cultural heritage through interviews with my music heroes, this is The Jake Feinberg Show. Welcome inside the Blackwood Broadcasting Studios at an undisclosed Institute of Higher Learning. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Thanks for being part of the program today. Melodic invention. A word developed by another bass player named Putter Smith, who defines this as European swing coupled with African rhythms. It doesn't really matter where it started because it was sprinkled with Dixieland in the South, Harlem soul in the North, blues in St. Louis up the Mississippi Delta to Chicago. This fusing of music included a young farmer from the valleys of California who worked a farm by day and sock hops by night. He became a fixture of San Francisco melodic invention, being partially responsible for desegregating the army with his mixed-race band, like the guys he grew up with on the farm. His first group included My Guest, who, like Al McKibben and John Hurd, the skipper Henry Franklin, and Scott LaFaro, found his way through the European swing by using African rhythms. His rhythm simpatico was Joe Morello, who brought an additional element of 5/4 time and a Dixieland bounce that further colored this band. My Guest is the only living member of the classic Dave Brubeck Quartet. After taking 5, My Guest went on to collaborate with Billie Holiday, Kenny Drew, Sonny Stitt, Cal Tjader, and Monty Alexander. He has written books on bass and played the supper club circuit of upstate New York. He has toured the world, bringing melodic invention to India and Japan and South America. What a way to end 2013. Senator Eugene Wright, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you.
I wanted to start by asking you, when was the first time you had to put a bass in your hands?
Oh, gosh. Well, the first time would be before I even got a bass. I used to go to the Regal Theater in Chicago and hear Count Basie's band. And I was way up in the bleachers, and I heard this bass sound, Walter Page. And every Saturday I could go there for the first show because I was still a little young, see. And I had to be home at a certain time. So I'm talking like 12, maybe 13, something like that. Anyway, so I would go there and I listened to him and I said to my brothers and I had a little instrument to play at home, And I was telling my brother, I said, John, man, I heard this bass. And I said, man, that's what I'm going to play. And he said, yeah, but that was quite a while before I even got to that point, But anyhow, but I never forgot that. And so as you'll find out further into the story that I used to work at a little sandwich place next to the Savoy Ballroom in the Regal Theater and the Metropolitan Theater on the other side of the street on South Park, which is Kings Drive now. And so I got to meet all these great guys. And I was what, doing 14. I went to the civilian consolation corps at 15 because my mother and father sent me because I was big for my age, and so forth. And so, but after I came back out, that's when I started working in space. I met all the Duke's band, and they come in, hey kid, would you join us for a little breakfast? I said, no problem. I can get it to him because I was young. I wasn't trying to be, so forth. Anyway, it went down nice. But there's always one in all these big bands that's going to try to hustle you, But the trumpet player, we don't go into names. That's not necessary. It's just a fact. So this one particular guy would come in, Art Coney, would be sitting there having breakfast, and this guy, hey kid, can you make me a hamburger and so forth, and I'll pay you later? And I said, well, okay, I'll let him have it. He came back the next day. He didn't come back anymore that day. He came back the next day, and kind of sitting there eating, and before the first show in the Wrigley Theater, which has, was a great show and everything. And so we went through all this thing, and he comes in. I said, well, no, I said, I can't help you this time. He said, well, man, you're money. I said, I can't help you. You haven't paid for what you did the other day. And he kept on, and Connie got him and said, man, leave the kid alone. And I said, so he told me, he gave her, leave him alone. And when Connie got up, he's a monster man, He played baritone, with Duke and so on. But anyhow, so I got by that and so forth. But I got to know all those guys personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I would trust them, and so forth. I had one or two I might have missed, but it wasn't a question of losing anything other than them not paying, But I learned to treat if you didn't do it, don't come back to me. And I was very young then, too, because, naturally I should have been a little more scared, I guess. But that's what happened on that. So then finally, I was making $10 a week. I worked from 6 to 6, either in the morning or in the evening. At 6 in the morning or 6 in the morning to evening, because that's where all the cabs and everybody, all the sporting people, I put it that way, because everybody was in, waiters and all different kind of owners and the ladies on the street and all that stuff. That back it was fast time back in those
exactly.
days.
No, I want to tell me about the characters that were filtering it at 6 a.m. when you would start your sessions.
Oh, well, you talking about the club I was playing with?
When you were doing the 6 to 6, I'm not so much 6 p.m., but the 6 a.m. sessions, because in Chicago, you had well, you tell me, who were some of what was that scene like at 6 in the morning when you would start playing music?
Well, I can hit that almost in one sentence, but I'll do it a little fun. On 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody's gone home by 3 and 4 in the morning, from the jobs and everything, but 6 o'clock in the morning, all the after-hour joints start opening up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be there, working, almost ready to get off at 6. Here comes all the different Jimmy Russian, all the top artists in the business, Duke's band. Half of them were showing up in these different places, and it would go on from 6 in the morning, according to me, when I was on my way home. I'd get up like 12, and there was a club right around too far from my house called the Club de Lisa. You could walk around there, where they had the chorus, the whole regular nightclub scene going on, and music, all the great people come there and hang out. But what would happen is I'd see Ray Nance coming, in a cab going somewhere. After I got off, But there was a place on the south side where I lived, it's very close to right on State Street and so forth, called, I can't think of his name, I'll think of it, let's go with it, that everybody would always turn up out there. And so I'm getting up at 12 o'clock to work for the rival dog food and make extra money, so forth, unloading boxers. But what happened is I'd see all these same gentlemen. All these great bass players. Jimmy Bland, I saw him and Duke just open up the whole show with the two of them, which was a treat, But back in those days, and Dinah Washington and all the singers and all the great Nella, what's her name? Nella something. She used to play piano and sing. Nella, I can't think of it. It pop out in other places. voice.
Sure. No, it's okay. I mean, what I guess I'm leading into here is, do you think at that time when you saw guys like who was the bass player? Page was his name.
Yeah, Walter Page.
Walter Page,
Yeah.
Basie, some of these other guys that were just heroes to you. But did it stand out to you at that time how unique and how individualistic they were and their sounds? And was that something that you said?
Well, that was the whole key to all of these gentlemen. I met them because I would hear them in the theater, on the days I'd be off, or I'd hear them at the dance at the Parkway Ballroom, the Persian Hotel, and so forth, playing clubs. Earl Hines would be in the club down on 35th Street, in a nightclub down there, and so forth. On 55th Street, they would have not Arne Cobb, but a Texas band would be in town, and that's when I really heard some Texas music, and so forth. But now what happened is I would see all this and meet all these guys, and I hadn't got the bass yet. My father finally went downtown. We got a gentleman down there, Sid, who was in charge of the music department, and tried to buy a bass and so forth. And so Sid said, well, no, we don't give credit to musicians. And so my father said, well, I guess we'll have to. So we started the door. He said, Mr. Wright, come back. Said, your son seems like he wants this bass so bad. He said, what I'll do is I'll trust you and him, and I'll let you give you so much money down the bed. I think we had $20 or something like that. He said, and you pay me something every week, and just out of a clear blue sky, no reason other than that he saw me, and I'm there waiting to get this bass. So anyway, so I got it, and so forth, and then I was rehearsing with the neighborhood bands, the groups we'd have around. But anyhow, not to take it too fast going forward, what would you follow? How would you like to follow that? Because I want to get the basic one, but I don't want to get it to me in the context.
Yeah, no, it's what I'm saying is, so you got. I'm talking about your individual sound, as we'll hear later. It's like very distinct sound, and and I'm trying to figure out how if those guys, the mentors that you had, even when you were just a young kid, whether you heard them and said, boy, that sounds so unique and so individualistic.
That's exactly right what you said there.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, the hardest part is like to become technically proficient and then be able to take what you have and then say what you got. And I'm just trying to figure out how those guys made you feel comfortable to be able to say what you wanted to say.
Before you get I think what I want to answer to that is, I heard Walter Page play. That bass went all through me. When I was a kid, and every time I'd hear a bass player, I'd think of Walter Page, and I'd go listen to this bass player, Israel Crosby, for example.
Mm-hmm.
These are great bass players, but I would always ask questions, and so forth. But Walter Page was my whole reason for playing bass, because all the other bass players, great bass players, that didn't register to me like Walter Page, because
mm-hmm.
that's what was the first 11. I have my bass now. I'm learning. I learned tuning. So what I want to say, because I can get away from things too quickly, I want to answer that. And so what happened is, out of a clear blue sky, I have to say it this way, and you can put it the way you want later, I'm sure, is I said, I was playing in the Congo Lounge with Dean Emmons and our quartet. We started at 9 o'clock, and we finished at 4. And we would get on stand. Bird, Diz, all the different jazz heavies would come in after they get through with their show or the dance, and they'd all hang out until almost 6 o'clock, give or take. And that's what brought me there. But the key thing was that I already knew I was going to be a bass player when I heard Walter Page. I told my brother that, of course. But the thing that never left me was that I never worried about trying to play like solos, bass solos and stuff like that. My idea was what I was hearing in all the different groups, and I watched the bass players, all the great ones, Pettiford and all those guys. I speak to them and I get to know them on a one-on-one basis, but I never wanted to play basically like they play, because they do it the whole. They play the solo. They play in the 70s. They do all kind of things in New York,
Sure.
and in Chicago.
Sure.
But my turn was I was going to be one of those great rhythm bass players. That was what carried me through all the years up until 90. And I'm still just you call me for a job, and I said, well, let's get together. I never would take a job unless I knew the person, and we had a chance to rehearse to find out whether I was adequate for the band. You see,
I hear this is interesting because it sounds to me like your mantra was lock the groove, right? You wanted to lock in the groove.
Anything we played, if we played a Dixieland thing, you could hear two that I learned from what was his name? I gotta think. Truck Palm, which was with Lumford's band.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that band too, and that was the greatest 2/4 band I ever heard in my life, and until today, it's still the top one.
But it wasn't. It didn't mean that Senator Wright couldn't go into a Texas bar and play rhythm and blues. I mean, you had the chops to do that.
I was doing that all the time.
Exactly. Well, see, and that's the thing is like you weren't. I mean, because you talked when I interviewed Richard Davis way back when, and when he was going to try out for symphonies, and you talked about New York with the symphonic stuff, and they would try out and they would put a curtain behind so they couldn't see what color their guy was.
That's true.
Okay,
well,
and let me just finish my point. So he knew he was hands down the best bass player for those gigs, but because he was black, he would not get the gigs.
That's right.
And only guys like to their credit, Leonard Bernstein or the guy from the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra. Only a couple guys were really not that uptight about the racial stuff, but you were really not in that type of. I was going to ask you, did you ever encounter that kind of overt racism where you were trying out for a gig knowing you were the best one and you didn't get it based on the color of your skin?
Well, I never had to try for a job like that because I never considered myself qualified. Because I learned my bass by myself, by watching and looking and listening and so forth. So when I joined, I don't believe I'm holding it for my punchline. But when I used to play weddings, marriages, all kind of gigs, families, Italian parties, the Jewish things and the Polish things and all Irish things too, because that's what I come through. My neighborhood was very mixed.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was that I wasn't interested in trying to play like anybody. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a good rhythm bass player from Walter Page's introduction. Being sick, and I took his place.
Oh, it's beautiful. No, and I'll tell you something. Tell me about a situation. Maybe it happened early on where you would go and observe a band that you were potentially interested in joining, and you could see that there was no chemistry between the rhythm section. And then the first time you walked in there, you were just like, I'm going to lock in this groove. And next thing you know, you look over and the drummer's smiling at you and the piano player's smiling. Tell me about a time in your career where you walked in, saw a band that you wanted to work with, but it just, you could see they were out of sync. And the minute you locked the groove, it was off to the races.
Well, the only way I can explain that is the fact that from Walter Page and Freddie Green and Joe Jones, I learned what rhythm is all about. And I learned that Walter Page was just the monster bass player with that orchestra, and he also was very well educated with that bass too. And so, but my approach to the thing, like Nat King Cole used to work in Chicago with a trio, and they had a big band a few years later. I got a chance to go by this. I wish I could think of the name of it, but right on Indiana in Chicago, right in the heart of everything's going on. And I'd go there, and then I'd be in another club, and the guy didn't show up on time, and Keith Issue, not him, one of the a great trumpet player, and I can't think of his name. But anyhow, gee, Ray, come on and play this first set. So I hadn't got there. So I'd go up there and play the first set, and I would just, I'd be, from the moment I picked up the bass and started playing, I'd be marching, but I played by ear a lot. I could hear things going on. I hadn't studied like I wanted. It took me 90 years to study the bass, in the sense of speaking, until I went to New York and so on like that. But I always had that good feeling, and I had learned from being with Gene Evans. Every time I played with somebody, gig or something like that, I was taught how I watched Freddie Green and Walter Page that the trick to a good rhythm bass player who enjoys it would be knowing how to join up with the drummer, whoever he was, good, bad, slow, whatever. Because I got this from them. I was kind of rushing one time playing with another band, and Walter said, "Hey, Gene, right, man, you come to rushing." I said, "Learn to lay back like you used to do with so." And get little hints and things like that. But I never had any problem with anybody I sat in with, because I would go there today, right, playing off nights in Chicago, different bands be in town, and I'd do the off night, and I'd go there a day or two, a night or two, and sit there and listen and look at them, and learn the book from just hearing them do it. So when it came time to use the off night band, which is Melvin, what's the Melvin? All these great piano players and drummers and musicians in Chicago, we had a lot of them. And you'd go in any club and find the pop being put on. Even Monk. When I played with him, I didn't know really what he would do, but Art Blakely talked me into doing it, and I took the job. And it was just a dance. And so I was playing, and he turned around and said, Honeysuckle Rose. And what he's playing had nothing to do with Honeysuckle Rose.
Right.
But the changes he gave me, telling me that he knew I knew Honeysuckle Rose.
Wow.
And so that's when I started marching on, and I look around, and the next one he started playing again, because, Monk get up and walk around and so forth. And when he come back, he may could be in another key. That's when a lot of guys realized I could play all the keys. And they couldn't understand, how I could jump in there and play something in B. I said, B what? But anyhow, I would go up there, and by the time he turned around and said, I got rhythm changes. All of the tunes he was playing made sense to me, because I could hear those tunes within what he was doing. And man, from by the second half with Art and I and him, man, Art put a thing on him, a tempo, and we got to march, and I just looked over and I heard it, and I started marching. Art came up and said, Gene Wright, you know the cat can play good rhythm. I said, no. I said, that's my thing. He said, no, man, I saw what you did. You jumped over there and jumped on my shoulder and rolled me for that whole tune. And I said, well, that's what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to join up with you. You're the timer. I'm supposed to lay down the law and make whoever's in that front line play. And so it grew from all those kind of things, you see.
Did you have a chance to play with? I know you played with Sonny Stitt. Did you
monster.
play? Who was the drummer? Billy James. Do you remember who the drummer was with Sonny?
Billy Jean.
Billy James.
I can't recall that name.
I'm just trying to think, because that is pretty. That story about you're telling me that with Monk, it was you, Monk, and Blakey playing in a trio at a party.
Yeah, at a dance.
At a dance. This is why I do this show. So I mean, he would call out these numbers, and Blakey would be playing at the most ridiculous tempo, and you just have to lock in the groove. And Monk would be there too. That's unbelievable.
Well, that though was when I first met Monk and those guys. I didn't know Monk. I didn't know a lot of the guys around there, but I knew how they played and I listened. But the reason why I ended up being a monster with what you're just asking me about was that Art Blakey was so surprised that I ended up playing as a section, see?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, because, see, Art don't need a bass player to play up there, and it's a great bass player, whoever it may be, and play like Tommy Potter and him got along fine, and Russell, those guys. But he always wanted, Art would always call me for some of the funniest gigs. Gee, mate, come on, I want to do this job, man. I want you so. Tommy Potter can't make it, so. In details. And then I realized that he was calling me because he knew I was going to be on his shoulders, and I'm going to be in my spot, not in his spot. Our spot's going to come to as one. And then George Vivier heard me playing with several different guys, the heavy ones, Max and all those guys, And a quick story: when Max came out to California, I was playing with Charlie Barnett at a little club, and I had no idea. I knew who Charlie Barnett. I knew about his band, but I didn't know Charlie. And we used to play Friday, Saturday, and in this club right halfway down the block from where the Bop City was in those days. And so when people, certain guys said, "Man, I understand you playing with Charlie Barnett," I said, "Man, he did." I said, "Man, come by here for yourself." But Charlie Barnett and I locked up after a couple of weeks, the first weekend. Then I got this call. Charlie said, he said, "G. Wright, I want you to do the soundtrack with my orchestra." I said, "Well, I'd love to." He said, "Fine." And I knew the book because you hear his band all the time on between movies and dances on the radio and records and stuff like that. So I knew his music, by heart. But anyhow, so I did it, and that's the first time I realized where the mic should be when you're playing with an orchestra. The mic was from here to, if I'd use the yardstick, I'd say 2 yards, 2 yardsticks long. That'd be 54 something feet.
Right.
And Mike's sitting down on the floor there, and I'm here, and then Jones over there in the band. We did the first take just to see if the balance right. My bass sounded like a brand new old bass from Europe or something, And I heard it, I said, "My gosh, I didn't know a bass sound like that." But we'd have a ball on the weekends. But then the next thing I was supposed to do the trailer, for the in the studio for the what we already recorded, but the road manager didn't call. And when we got to work that night, Charlie said, "Man, I thought you was going to do the thing." But I said, "Well, I had planned to, but nobody called me." His manager ran all that, that business. And that's when I realized, again, here goes that racial thing.
Oh, yeah,
but I didn't pay no attention to it because we were having a good time on that club. And I had the opportunity to play with that big band soundtrack, anyhow, so forth. And it was been nice. It probably pushed me a little further in the direction, that all the other, like Buddy Frank and all the other guys that eventually went through their lives, read novels. I'll let you keep asking questions because you ask good questions.
Thank you. No, listen, we're talking to Senator Eugene Wright. You mentioned Bop City. Is that I think this is really important. How did you wind up crossing paths with Brubeck originally? Did you meet him in San Francisco at that time?
I met him when I was with Cal Jader, and we were playing Cal Jader. We'd do a set, and then Dave would come on with his quartet, and then he'd do his last set, and he'd leave, and we played the last set.
Okay, this is so I wanted to touch on Cal for a minute because he was such an unsung hero and such an important figure. But he had not pivoted to Latin jazz. You guys were playing straight ahead stuff, and is that fair to say, or were you?
Oh yeah. Maybe explain that really quick before it gets away from me. What happened was Cal Jader called me. He said, "G. Wright," said, "I'm going to come to L.A. and record a record and so forth and details." He said, "Could you get me a drummer and piano player?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'll get Eric Wiggins and I'll get Bill Douglas, a great drummer."
Oh my, Bill Douglas? Are you serious?
Bill Douglas.
Oh,
he was also with the in the union, but
I know Bill. Yeah.
He was another Sid something drummer. Sid. What's Sid's name? Big Sid. I can't think of his name.
And you said Gerald Wiggins on piano?
Gerald Wiggins was
unbelievable. And so he obviously was saying, "I want."
Well, he wanted to play some jazz, so it came to New York. He did a suite that I had wrote, and we played the tunes that he wanted to play, and he played up a storm. But every time we played like something, a standard tune that you can put the pot on it, or either the blues or on there, we'd get some of the hits. We set it up by the third chorus. And when we finished that tune, he came and said, "Man," he said, I was almost so nervous. "Man, this thing just got a hold of me. I didn't know what to do." I said, "What's your name?" I said, "Man, that's what this is all about." I said, "And that's why I'm glad that you came down." Because he had such a great time And then he went back, and nothing talking about me joining him then, you know.
Did you ever? Because actually, did you get a chance to play Vibes too, or did you ever play?
No, I know nothing about Vibes.
So you were in that group, and because for a lot of people they don't realize Jader was originally Brubeck's drummer as well in that.
Yes, you have the whole story about all that. Yeah.
And so eventually tell me what album you cut with him, because I'm not familiar with that. Do you know the name of the album you played with Cal?
I should have had him out.
Well, I'll look it up. But so then.
But I did. I joined him when he called me. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, asked me, "Gee, Wright, I want you to come join the group." I said, "Well, Cal, you know, I don't take gigs that I don't feel comfortable." And he said, "Well, no. I said, "And the way you play Latin and the way I learned it in New York is a big difference, you see. But the same tunes and people, but the feeling and the setting and what I try to explain is that, you know, the bass players in New York coming from Q and all those places, man, is a whole nother direction." And so I naturally liked all that and so forth. You know, he enjoyed it. But I said, "Well, I'll come there and see if it works out okay." He said, "Yeah, well, come on down." And then he said, "Well, no, I can play with that, with the rhythm, the Latin rhythm." And it was very easy to learn, but I had to stop a minute and think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, man. The clave is not.
Because I didn't really realize how to play that 4-1. See, I play 1, 2, 3, 4, or I play 1 and skip 1 and go to 2. So, but then he showed me. I said, okay. In other words, it's going to be bum doom dee 4 1 doom dee. That laid back. That 4 becomes the dominant, and the 1 is in the place where the 4 would be.
That's, yeah.
You know,
we know that is the clave. And
there you are. Well,
I
know those names. I didn't know those names. So I just knew how to play them. I learned how to put the blues on it, and then we play jazz, on the same set. So it got to play, and a couple of times we had some wonderful times, you know, so forth. And then he was going to take a long vacation, and so I was going to go back to Chicago and study. Richard Davis, the symphony teacher there, was very great. But go on, just keep answering the question.
No. So Cal was he said there's a certain Latin way on the West Coast, and you're like, I've learned it differently on the East Coast, and then he came and you locked in the clave. Did you ever play with guys like any of the percussionists?
Mondo, what's his name? Mongo has his own group.
Mongo Santa Maria.
Yeah, I played with him.
And Willie Bobo.
He was in Cal Jetter's group when I was in there.
Unbelievable. You know. So I mean, this is almost as appealing. Oh, but so then Cal's going on a vacation, and then you're playing a set, the early set, and then Brubeck would come on, and eventually you got to talk. So that's how you wound up in his band.
Well, that's when I found out that Norman Granz didn't want to go on this State Department tour for 3.5 months. And Joe said to Dave, "Dave, well, G. Wright's right here. Why don't you see if you can get him to go?" And Dave said, "All right." And so Dave comes, "G. Wright, I could join the group." I said, "Well, Dave, I don't know what you're playing. I'm sincere about that." He said, "What?" I said, "I know the standard. I know the tunes you play, and when you're playing standards and so forth. And suddenly my prince will come and all that stuff, you know, in details, and hits for him, and he had just been on the cover of Time thing, you know, so forth and so forth. He said, "Well, Jim, come on over to the house and we'll go through some things and see what happens." So I said, "Well, I can do that." So I got over to his house, and we started playing "Brother, Can You Spare a Dime?" Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? Well, then when they came to the bridge, and we were playing it in the chorus, brother, and then I played I played the bridge, you know, and so forth. And he come on, and then we started the second chorus, and Dave started playing the way he plays when I hear it in the club. I said, "Oh, I see it. I understand it now." And I started marching on him. Well, we got to marching, just the two of us. It was a very good marriage, you know. And he started laughing, and I started laughing, and he finally stopped. "Gee, wait, what is it?" I said, "Dave, if you're happy, I'll take the job." And he says, "Oh, yeah, well, okay, well, fine. We'll get together and give you all the details." Well, now the State Department tour, I only took that part of it. Northern bass, I thought he was going to come back to the groove. So forth. Nobody had mentioned about me staying, but on that State Department tour, a whole lot happened. Boy, we got to cooking, and Joe Morello and I locked up. Now, that was one of the greatest rhythm sections I played with. I always played with great rhythm drummers. Like
well, before you go any farther, I want to play this clip of music, and then
okay,
and we'll come back and talk about
a lot of memories. I was going to ask you a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice the when I changed from just boom 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 to boom 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 boom? When I changed it, started doing that
sure.
After and the trick was to doing that to set the color of that boom boom boom. That's thin. See, and I said, well, I'm going to do down the line. I'm going to play boom boom boom. The notes are shorter. Then when I said doom 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 boom doom boom, if you notice, I leaned on that boom doom boom, and that changed the whole color. And when Dave came in, man, this thing was smoking.
Yeah, well, I mean, the name of that tune is called Unsquare Dance.
Unsquare Dance. We did it one time and recorded it.
You never played that live?
Never played it live.
I dig it because it's in some ways it's sparse, and it also, even though Morello he's playing drums a little bit, but I wanted you to talk about the. There's so many legendary rhythm sections out there.
Yeah.
But really focus in on. Morello seems to have been a major catalyst. He in that band. And were you guys did you play a lot of gigs? Were you one of the first mixed race bands? Do you think?
Well, not really. There was a clarinet player, if I can remember his name. Every time when I first got to New York. And I met him, I knew of him. He would always call me all his gigs, you know.
And who was he? Was he a white cat or what?
White cat, yes, white. It's quite popular, well known. Oh, I wish.
You say he was a conga player?
No, he played clarinet.
Oh, he plays Buddy DeFranco?
No, I played with him later.
Right. Okay, but
no.
Yeah.
It should have come to me.
Pizzarelli?
No. This was way before all that.
You know, the point is that when you guys would one of the things I know you guys were innovators at was at odd time signatures. I mean, a lot of stuff 5/4 time, and that stuff you have to have a groove with your drummer. And I just take that to me is so significant because what followed after you was like this polyrhythmic explosion with Indian music coming to the States, and Jader went off on that stuff. But really, it seems to me that this configuration of the Brubeck band was the one that started odd time signatures.
Yeah. Well, let me say that before I forget this too. The trick in my thinking was that I knew how to join Joe Morello. Joe Morello's a top #1 drummer. He played with Marion McPartland. I heard about him, in New York for a long time. And when I joined him, man, him and I locked up on the first thing in Bombay, of the
State Department.
So forth. But the trick was that Dave wrote all the things he heard over there on that 3.5 month tour. When we came back, we started doing things that he wanted to try. But the trick to the whole thing, I always gave credit to is Joe Morello. And then I would take a little credit myself because I enjoyed. We became one in two generations. Joe Morello and I locked us so tight that Dave could do anything he wanted to do, anything he wanted to write.
It's such an interesting point because tell me about some of the trips over there. You went to the Middle East and
Far East, Middle East, yeah.
So what kinds of music were you listening to that Dave would come back? Because the only way that stuff's going to fly is if the drummer and the bass player can pull it off.
Well, that's what it was all about, yeah. But the trick was that the way Norman bass played bass, very good and so forth, but he didn't play like a Chicago blues bass player played. When I was coming through the channel, his technique and everything was right there. Read anything, play anything, so forth. But the trick was that Joe Morello and I locked up on him, and it took us quite a little while on the State Department. One night we was playing some big outdoor thing, and Dave decided to play the opening and so forth, the youth courses. And then he gave it to Paul, and he stopped, and Paul and Joe and I got to playing for, like without the piano, so forth, detail. And boy, Paul stretched out on this tune, standard tune. Paul loved to play certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave and they had all the stuff they could do. But what happened was Paul played at least 10 courses, and I'm sitting there listening because we were playing, but we knew how to set Paul down. See, Paul doesn't like to be pressed or pushed too hard. He liked to be able to very logical, what is it, harmonically and logical. And his sound was only on sound you hear. You don't hear a sound like Paul. You hear a lot of sound like him, but they don't have that little extra something that goes there. And I used to have a lot of alto players. Yeah, man, but Johnny Hodgson, that's my friend. He doesn't play like any of those guys. Well, you're trying to give him a title,
a label,
a label, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, there's only one Paul Desmond. It took me about a month to realize who Paul was. I knew of him, and I knew he played. But I did things with him and Jim Hall and Connie A. on drums and myself. Take 5, one of those Paul's tunes, and I take one.
You were on the Paul Desmond album with Jim Hall where they did Take 5. I remember.
Not Take 5. I meant to say Take 10.
Take 10.
Yeah.
I did not. It's just. I mean, do you have at this point in your career, looking back on it, tell me about the significance of that original group and sort of the kinds of cats that you would look at coming up after you and saying, well, I'm glad we gave them a little bit of an education. I mean, what's the legacy of that quartet? Desmond, you, Morello, and Brubeck.
It was the greatest rhythm section and quartet that you will ever hear when Dave hired Paul. But the thing was still missing, according to what all the records that they gave me to listen to learn this tune, that tune. I'd never heard Paul and Joe Morello lock up. They did the job, played and everything. But when I got that job, and I'm so glad because I would never take a job and I was sure I could take care of business because that's the way it was in Chicago. You took a job and you take care of business. They didn't call you again.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, so my version of the quartet is Dave finally had the opportunity to extend himself as far as for 92 years in music, classical, everything. And with the rhythm, when we played with Bernstein and Joe Morello and I were under, and Dave set the time, Bernstein's conducting, and Joe Morello and I put a time on them boys that Bernstein had a hustle to keep that 103 or 4 organization, a band, together with the strings. One time we were playing, I'm looking over listening, and I could hear the violin goes, behind. But he brought them up by the time we got to the next section of what we were doing and this thing, which Dave's brother wrote the arrangement and everything for in detail. But anyhow,
did you know? Can you talk about your relationship with Al McKibben?
Oh yeah, personal friend.
Yes, I mean, talked about the how important he was. And
I got a good story for you if you want it.
Do it.
I was playing with Gene Ammons in Birdland. Al McKibben was with the pianist, blind pianist.
George Shearing.
Yeah, Shearing. And so they were playing, and we had 3 different bands playing. So I was playing, and he came in, and he stood back there. So when he came off the stand, out of clear blue, he said, "Hey, man, you can't play in this place with that cigar box." So it was an okay bass, it was not an expensive bass. He said, "What I'll do, I'll bring a bass down for you to play." I look at him, I knew of him, and I met him, but I didn't expect him to be that straight ahead, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brought this big bass that he had out here before he died, and I used to go by every day when they passed his house, going to the Hollywood Bowl or going to Hollywood Bowl. And I'd always stop by the house on my way back, and I'd go up there, and then over the line, he would say, "I know you didn't come to see me. You come to see that bass." I said, "You're absolutely right." But that bass was a trillion bass back then when he brought it for me to play, made in the 3rd century. And I didn't know that then.
Wow.
I didn't realize that until I started seeing him in California and so forth. But Al McKibben would always. I'd go by his house, but before that, he'd always come back and listen and say, he said, "You got, I got to bring one of my basses by because that bass is just, how do you put it, whipping you to death." And I said, "I'm having a good time. I thought I was straight, We were marching. I was marching, but when I played that bass, the next set when we came on, and I started hitting the notes, I said, oh my gosh." That's when I realized, man, that my bass is all right because I'm happy with it, but there's something better in an instrument for me down the line.
The 3rd century.
Yeah, 3rd century.
My God, are you mentoring today, or do you tell me about your? Do you play parties? Like, what do you still do to keep the soul
I
going?
do whatever I'm called for, actually, but I do basically living out here and with all the economy stuff. Every 20 years, something breaks down in this country. So I used to play all the Beverly Hills parties and concerts and things, and all up in that area because that's where the big money was and so forth. But and anytime they call me for something, it's because they heard me play for a previous person, and they always walk up somebody. There's always musicians and singers with all these different parties and things like that, big names and everything. And this one person, I'm trying to, Anita Day.
Mm.
I was playing with a wonderful piano, but I can't remember exactly when because I played with her several times. But she walked over and she says, "Gee, Wright, I want you to join my group." I said, "Well, Anita, I got this and that, but I could do. Well, just come on and do one night with me." I said, "Okay." And I went by to do that one night with her, and she came off the stage. She looked at me and says, "I've been waiting to hear a bass player to play like you." I said, "Well, all I do is play the bass." She said, "No." She said, "You made me sing harder than I ever wanted to sing."
you got her real fired up.
Yeah, and then later down the line, I was in the club with my wife, and I was sitting there listening to her out here in California. And she was doing things, and so she finished the set. She went, "Gee, Wright, you got to play the next two with me. Otherwise, I just soon go home." Well, the guy she had, yeah, he could play, but he couldn't play for her because she's a monster singer. People didn't realize that. But when she's right, look out. See, and when she would not right, look out.
Right, because
so I'd go up there. And I said, "Well, I'll play one tune with you." And the guy said, "Yeah, come on, play one." And he was glad to be have me one. So we did a tune. I can't think of the name. It's one like in fast. And of course, she could sing all those trips and things out on a real fast tune like that. We did this one tune. She likes to sing fast, and I think it was her husband at the time, the drummer. Doing those years, anyhow. So she kicked the thing off, and so I waited for the first chorus, let her get her thing out, and then the second chorus, I dropped the feeling down to about say a half an inch, meaning not changing anything, but brought the sound down ahead. And she started stretching out, and by the time she got to the third or fourth chorus, I had moved it back to where it was and moved it up a notch. And she went on up with those knots because I knew her like a book, and I know like she likes things she likes to do, just from knowing her and playing with her off and on, so in detail. Man, when she came up the stand, she says, "Gee, Wright," she said, she was spellbound, really. She couldn't talk. She said, "I had no idea I could sing that fast." I said, "Well, you always sing that fast." She said, "Yes, but not like when you were playing for me." And we had a time when her and I was on the stand, and the drummer got up, walked on, sat down, and just her and I had, You got to play some music or something?
No, actually, we have to wrap it up. And I what I want to say to you.
I refuse to talk.
No.
On my Constitution right.
You have every right to no, and I'd like to do a part 2 with you before the new year, and I'll be in touch with you. But I just I wanted to say thanks for the wealth of knowledge and information, and I'll get you a copy of this as soon as I can. We'll be in touch, Senator. Okay?
Well, just call me when you want to do the other half.
You better believe it, my friend, and much love to you. Merry Christmas. Okay?
Oh, same to you, and have a good day.
All right now.
Bye-bye.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show, and we'll see you in 2014.